There's a problem with the Technicolor Gateway Router DJA0231 firmware version 20.3.c, where if you make a particular change in the settings, that the upload speed just slows down to around about 256 kilobits a second. So it's due to a firmware bug. You can turn it on and speed is fine. You turn it off and the speed grinds to 256. Turn it on and the speed is fine again. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm doing this video partly to give to Telstra, but also partly in case it helps anybody else who might be suffering this same sort of problem. So this is another photo of the gateway router. You might be able to make out the Telstra logo here. That's for the front view, and that's the rear view. You can see there that I've only got one PC connected, which is the one that I'm using for this presentation. That's from the NBN NTU, Network Terminating Unit. The power's down here and my phone plugs into there. Some Telstra do call this a smart modem. Modems aren't like this. This particular thing is actually a gateway router. A modem, as you might remember, is that thing from the analog phone days that used to screech down the phone to get, went up to like 56 kilobits a second, I think. So that's, yeah, it's definitely not a smart modem, despite Telstra calling it. That's what it is. It's actually a gateway router. So let me show you the settings. So these are the settings as you go into the gateway router. This is the admin view, which is what you need to do any sort of decent configuration on it, and I would expect everybody to be doing some configuration on it. I'll show you what should be done towards the end of this video, but for now just know that you would be changing things on here, particularly in the Wi-Fi settings, the DHCP settings. You definitely, well, you may be changing things like if you've got a DIN DNS, dynamic DNS, if you've got any port forwarding, you'll be changing that. And I've changed the content sharing to disable the file server and DLNA because I don't need that. I don't use that on this box. I've got a server for that, and also disable printer sharing. So those things you'd be changing, and of course you change the admin password, don't you? You don't leave it at the default, do you? I kind of think Telstra expect that people don't go in and change settings, which is a bit daft, because you certainly should be changing settings, given that the password for admin is Telstra. So there would be things on here that you definitely would want to change. The offending setting is in local network. I'll explain later how I found that. So I use DHCP for this gateway router is a DHCP server, so I put that on. This is the offending setting, the IPv6 state. Now, I don't use IPv6, so to save resources, I disabled that. Of course, you disable things that you don't need to save resources. But as soon as you do that, the gateway router slows your up speed to around about 256 kilobits a second. Put it back on and it goes up again to 19 megabits a second, which is what it should be. Turn it off and back down it goes again. I will demonstrate that. So first up, I've just got Task Manager, and under the Performance tab, I look at the Ethernet speed, which is the speed at the back of the PC that's connected into the gateway router, and you can see that it's in a steady state. It's only transmitting very small amount of data, and it's receiving very small amount of data. So that's the static state of it. So this is speedtest.net. This is their little app, which I do find quite helpful. I have specified Windsor because that's my nearest node. So let's hit go and just see what it goes to, and you'll see on the graph it's going to go sky high. So it would normally be 55 megabits a second down for me and 19 up, and the ping's usually around 6 or 7. So it's roughly the same, so a 52 megabits a second down, 19 up, and 9 millisecond ping. So that's with that setting turned on. Now I'm going to upload a video to YouTube as my example of a large sustained upload to demonstrate this problem. This problem happened on every upload. So whether I was uploading something to Google Drive, if I was uploading a 1 kilobyte image, if I was putting something through Messenger, I couldn't even log into Discord. This problem had been going over 1 year, and Telstra and NBN couldn't find anything wrong. Let's begin an upload to YouTube, and we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to upload an ad that I actually saw on YouTube, which is about a scam. So let's go and upload that. Now you can see it's sending. It'll be sending at a sustained rate around about 19 megabits a second. That's normal. And you can see the size of this video file is 140 megabytes, which should take around about 2 minutes. But before it does that, let's turn this off and watch what happens. So you've got to save it. So that's all I've done, is to turn that off and save it. Yep. So let's see what's happened to the upload. So it's going to be stuck at 75%. Grab Task Manager again. So you can see now it's just basically put an end to the upload. A steady state will be around 256 to 300 kilobits a second. And so that 2-minute video I have done many times in my testing. It takes 10 to 14 hours. Uploading things to Google Drive was impossible. It would just time out. But at least YouTube seems to have some sort of a recovery. It's actually gone backwards because I guess it wasn't able to confirm a data packet that had been sent up. So you can see it's gone really slow. So let's go and change that setting back and watch what happens. And again, that's the only change that I've made. Nothing dramatic yet. Perhaps I better check that I actually did. Yep, it's on, and the change has been saved. And it's still, here we go. Maybe. Nah, it's still going to take a long time. So what I'm going to do is just cancel it. And I'll upload again. So you can see this is 136, 140 megabytes in size. So we're expecting this to be fast, and lo and behold, it's fast. And it will take about 2 minutes. So again, let's turn this off, save. And it drops. It's dropping really low. So yeah, instead of taking 2 minutes, it's going to take 10 to 14 hours. Yeah, if you're in some doubt about that, let's cancel that again and redo it. And yeah, this can take a long time because now we're in that slow mode, so anything takes ages. So what we're going to do is have a look at Task Manager again. So it's at that steady state. Just check that it is at that steady state. Yep, it is. So let's upload another video again. First of all, let's alright, so it is just checking that it is off. Before we do that, let's do a speed test. And this is why Telstra couldn't find anything wrong, because the speed test, for some reason, performs completely normally. So the download is perfectly normal, but also the upload is completely normal, around 19 megabits a second. So every time I reported this to Telstra, they would do the speed test from their end, and they would verify that there's what they thought was nothing wrong. And I'd tell them, well, yes, something is wrong because I can't get that kind of speed. I would run the speed test, confirm their result, but real world was not uploading at that kind of speed. So let's upload that file again, and we can see it's slowed down to this abysmal speed, and it could take a long time to even get to 1%. It roughly takes about an hour to get to 7%. But I can do a speed test again, and it'll be a perfectly normal result. And we should see that come over here. We should see it's a little bit slow because I am doing that upload. Yep, so the upload speed is perfectly fine, 18 megabits a second. But now that speed test has stopped, it's going to drop down again to around about that 256, 300 kilobits a second. So I've left it for about an hour now, and you can see it's uploaded about 7%, and according to the graph, the amount of traffic going through the Ethernet port is around 200 to 400 kilobits a second. Sometimes it gets a bit higher, sometimes a bit lower. So if we do the speed test, it will look fine. And we'll see that reflected on the graph, that the traffic going through the Ethernet port. So it's 50 megabits a second down, ping of 9 milliseconds, and up is 19 megabits a second. So that's why Telstra thinks that there's never anything wrong, because the speed test is fine. But you can see here there's something terribly wrong. So I'll go and change that IPv6 state to on again and save that. I have to put in my password. Because I've left it for an hour. Go into local network again. Change it to on and save. So what I would like to see is that this reverts to a really high speed again, but it doesn't seem to. It looks like I have to. Yeah, still staying low. So I've got to kill that. I'm just turning it on and off and on and off, so you can see that it's actually having the effect that I'm saying it's having. So I'll start another upload, and you'll see this being back to fast. Look at it go. and there we can see it's 19 megabits a second up. So there you go, proof positive. I'll just kill that again, and yeah, I've done it so many times to try and figure out what was going on. So this was a kind of a summary of what I found. So Telstra and NBN Co were unable to help with this issue. They both sent techs out to the house, but couldn't find anything wrong. Telstra could not see the disconnects that I was getting or the terrible upload speed. The disconnects were nearly 4,000 disconnects in a 2-month period, but they didn't see that. The terrible upload speed that I've demonstrated, they didn't see that, because they just look at speedtest.net, and that doesn't reflect the real world upload speed. So Telstra would just close off the fault, telling me that the problem had been resolved, rather than asking me if it was resolved. And of course, no, it wasn't resolved. They didn't do anything. Just that they couldn't see the problem, they couldn't be bothered investigating it properly, and they couldn't be bothered asking me, was it actually resolved? So I reported it again and again. Probably a dozen times in this year I would have reported that. So recently, after so many months, one tech asked me to factory reset the gateway router. Oh, and by the way, they both NBN and Telstra replaced both of their devices, the NBN network terminating unit, black box, and the Telstra gateway router have both been replaced, and the problem was still completely there. They did a signal test, perfectly reasonable signal. So there was no reason for anything, and they couldn't see any reason for anything, but the problem was there if they only looked at it from my perspective. So the problem is definitely there, and if you guys do make that change to the IPv6 state of turning that off, and you've got my box and my firmware, which is Telstra's box, and it's their firmware. Well, it's Technicolor's firmware. If you turn that off, you're going to get the same problem as I did. So that's why I'm creating this video, partly to show them or prove to them, and I hope that Telstra can verify what I've shown, and if they can, I hope that they do take it up with Technicolor and that it's fixed in a future firmware release. So yeah, after a long time, one tech asked me to do a factory reset of the gateway router. So I reluctantly saved the changes that I'd made, and you should be making changes to the settings, like change the admin password, and I also specify static IPs for servers that need a static IP address or PCs that need a static IP address. I set up port forwarding for those services and PCs that need port forwarding. I do run DIN DNS, so there's settings that I changed for that. Of course, I changed the Wi-Fi settings. You've got to change the Wi-Fi settings. Far out. So I reluctantly did the reset, and the problem was gone. Then I made the most critical changes, about 6 of them, and the problem was back. So I backed out the changes, and the fast upload speed returned. Then I thought, I'll reapply these changes one at a time until I found the firmware bug that I've shown you, where you change that and the upload speed is terrible. So I've told Telstra about this, and they really didn't seem to care. I will send them a link to this video in the hope that they will get it fixed in a future firmware release. And I hope this video has been helpful to somebody else who is changing that setting, as really everybody should be changing that setting. If you're not using IPv6, because you turn stuff off to save resources. So there you go. I hope this has been helpful to some other people.